Hello everyone, Deviator here with my first in the series of LCS tactical analysis and coaching guides. And today I'm going to talk about Gambit Gaming. Since I started working on League, I spent more time following and scouting Gambit Gaming, previously Moscow 5, than any other team, and they quickly became one of my favourite top two teams in the world, alongside Weishao Era World Elites. This season, I feel that Gambit are simultaneously overrated and underrated, actually. Many fans look at Gambit's roster, which with the addition of Forgiven, is one of the strongest mechanically in the LCS, and assume that this is a team that must surely finish top 3 in EU LCS and qualify for Worlds, whilst ignoring sort of the fundamental strategic flaws in Gambit's play. At the same time, many top-level analysts look at Gambit's fundamental strategic flaws and assume that even with good coaching, and Gambit are, after all, currently trying out a number of new coaches before the next LCS split, these flaws cannot easily be identified and fixed. So in these videos, I'm actually going to look at what Gambit's flaws were in the last LCS split, how these were exploited in international competition at IEM Katowice, and how they can be fixed for the following season. So in the first two videos, these will be targeted at all LCS fans, sort of giving insight into how coaches recognize and try to exploit weaknesses within competitive League of Legends, specifically targeted at Gambit Gaming. So in the first video, I'm going to talk about recognizing these weaknesses. In the second video, I'm going to show how these were exploited, and in the third video, the video is going to be specifically targeted at coaches, sort of helping to recognize these flaws, how to combat the flaws identified in the first two videos, and suggesting some basic preparation and drills you can use to fix these problems when coaching your own team in the future. Okay. So part one. So basically, in preparing these videos, I basically watched about 20 hours of VODs. However, rather than making you watch through all the 20 hours of videos, I'm going to focus on 5 games in particular. So I'm not going to follow the whole of the games because I think Gambit's problems were mainly focused in the early game. I'm just going to focus on the first 15 minutes of each of these games, skipping between the parts that aren't relevant. And I'll do a quick introduction, aim to spend about 15 minutes on each game, maybe a little bit less, and then do a short summing up afterwards. You can find a script of all my videos in the comments below. I've been told by many people that they can sometimes find it difficult to understand my accent, or sometimes I speak too fast, as well as further links, references from games that I didn't have time to cover, etc, etc, etc. If you have any further questions, you can find my contact details on my channel main page, or you can leave a question in the comments and I'll be sure to get back to you as quickly as I can. This channel is mainly intended to help other coaches and basically doesn't generate any income for me, so I'm not going to ask you to link, like, dislike any of my videos. Frankly, you can do whatever you want with them. If you link them to another channel or place them on another channel, just be sure to link people here to give credit. But as far as I'm concerned, you can do whatever you want with these videos. I don't mind. Okay, so a quick reminder for those who've not seen Gambit play last season, or for those who need quick reminding. Just a quick reminder, this is pre-Cinderhulk patch for the first video. Cinderhulk was, and Cinderhulk has been nerfed before the next LCS season, so we may see a more return to this kind of sort of playstyle rather than a complete domination of tank junglers. Although even with the nerf Cinderhulk, these tank junglers should be viable, but I mean, I suspect the metagame will be more similar to what is being described in these videos than under the Cinderhulk patch. But that's to be seen for now. I'm not going to discuss the Cinderhulk patch. I'm more talking about Gambit Gaming as a whole. So let's start a little bit. A quick reminder on picks bans. So this is a very, very typical Gambit Gaming composition. Just get this up. So here we see Cabashard. Cabashard basically plays AP top laners, prioritizes AP tops that farm well in the 2v1, such as Kennen and Morgana. He also has sometimes played hybrid tanks, such as sort of lane bully hybrid tanks, such as Irelia and Renekton, but generally he prefers to default to Kennen or Morgana. Diamond plays pretty much everything in the jungle, but he has a clear progression of choice. So he generally prefers Rek'Sai as his number 1 pick, going into Nidalee, and then pick Sejuani, Vi, and Lee Sin. Although this, of course, changes a little bit in the Cinderhulk patch, but like I said, we're probably going to be returning to a metagame more similar to pre-Cinderhulk. Although with more tank junglers being viable. Okay, so then you have Betsy as their mid laner. Betsy was introduced part of the way into the season after Nick was unable to play. He basically only plays assassins. He's a very, very strong Zed player, plays Samari, also plays a little bit of Ezreal, but didn't look so good on more utility champions such as Lulu when he played the mid. Pinoy. So Pinoy is Gambit's AD carry. He only plays Graves, Kalista, and Tristana this season, with one game of Sivir. So those are basically his main champions. This will become very, very important later in the second video, and we'll come down to that later. And Edward basically plays a lot of different supports, mainly preferring the disengaged supports such as Janna and Thresh. Also played Morgana, which is the flex pick that Gambit often picked top, but could switch to support if they needed to. Just a quick comment about strengths and weaknesses of Gambit's champion pool. So Kabashar's champion pool is especially strong at farming in the 2v1. It's also generally very good at tying or winning in the lane phase. Morgana is especially very good in the 2v1, but these sort of champions, because they're not pure tank and they're not pure damage, can fall off a little bit in the very, very late game. Pinoy is the one that I really want to talk about. So Pinoy's champion pool is quite diverse strategically, so he can pick Graves or Kalista for an early game sort of based composition, or Tristana for a late game one, but his picks lack sort of tactical variety. So he doesn't play Lucian, doesn't play Sivir, who's the best team rotation based AD carry, and doesn't play the super late game hyper carries such as Jinx and Kog'Maw until after IEM because of the shock that happens within the season. This is important for next season because Forgiven basically is very similar in his champion pool. He may be mechanically stronger, but the strategic diversity in his champion pool is very, very similar. He basically plays Lucian, Graves, Kate, occasionally Corki. But no Jinx, no Sivir, no Cog. So it's a mechanical upgrade, but unless Gambit managed to change something in Forgiven's playstyle before the new season, we're not going to have an upgrade in strategic pool, just a mechanical upgrade. So this is something to bear in mind coming into the next season, and we're not going to know for sure until Gambit play their first game this week. It's this week. Okay, thirdly, so Diamond prioritized the early game champions that can help snowball the game before the Cinderhulk patch, such as Rek'Sai, Nidalee. As Kabashar doesn't play tank tops though, Gambit, because Diamond plays the sort of Rek'Sai Nidalee, Gambit will often play team compositions with no pure tank line. And although Rek'Sai can be built tank, he falls off late game compared to some of the other super tanks that you can play, such as Gragas, Sejuani. Gragas wasn't in this patch so much, but Sejuani, Jarvan, Vi in particular. Betsy also, there's another limitation in his strategic pool, which is basically that he only plays assassin. And so basically what this means is that Gambit basically play team compositions that fall off late game. So if the game goes beyond 30 minutes, they will be relying heavily on picks and individual outplays to win games. Secondly, Gambit don't play compositions which have strong frontline tanks when Diamond is on a non-tank jungler. So this means that that they'll often be forced to either play pick compositions or compositions which aim to disengage in team fights, but compositions which will be quite weak against hard engage 5v5 team fight sort of teams. Thirdly, Gambit rely heavily on sort of chaining this targeted CC. So this is in this composition you see this in Morgana and Ahri, but often you see Morgana Thresh or Morgana Ahri Thresh, and sort of chaining their CC in making picks on individuals. So this comes into their sort of pick composition style, but just going on to this, I mean, it's individual targeted CC, and Gambit can sometimes find it hard to win games where they don't snowball hard early, because their assassins can sometimes fall off in the late game. Ahri and Zed can fall off in the late game when everybody has Quicksilver Sashes or Zhonya's Hourglasses, and likewise with Ahri. So this is just something to bear in mind. So Gambit are always looking to fight early, snowball early, and make picks around objectives late. However, they have a few weaknesses which make it difficult for them to snowball early off anything except for individual outplays, which is their vision control, which we're going to cover in this game. And I'm going to cover specifically Gambit's weaknesses in vision control, but also the lack of vision control that they get from support and mid, and why this is important when Diamond is on champions which don't buy sight stones early and can't make up this vision control deficit. And this is what we're going to look at in these videos. Okay, so let's go into the first game, and this game I'm going to talk in quite large detail about because it shows the differences in vision control in the first couple of minutes of the game. And the first 5 minutes of this game is extremely important. I think Gambit actually end up winning this game, but they make 6 very important errors in the first 4.5 minutes of this game, which puts them very, very far behind, and then Fnatic throw immediately. And this is what we're going to look at specifically. And we're going to talk in detail here about Yellow Star and Edward, and their different styles of playing support, and what the advantages and disadvantages this provides to both teams. And hopefully I should be able to highlight why Yellow Star is seen as basically one of the best supports in the world, and Edward, why many people think Edward has fallen off a little bit since Season 3. Okay, so let's go and get into the game. Here, the game's already up. So this is very, very typical Gambit team composition. Okay, very, very typical Gambit team composition. You have the sort of AP top, you have the Rek'Sai in the jungle, you have Assassin in mid, and you have Kalista. Yeah, okay. So let's go and get into the game.
Very, very squishy composition coming in.
Well, we are going to see that cannon to round out
So,
Gambit. So, as far as team,
just going to fast forward into the game. Okay,
well
so important things to note. Edward here starts with boots over GP10 item. So this is something which Edward has done a lot this season, and it's basically sort of indicates his intention to rush mobility boots. And it also shows that he's not rush mobility boots over sightstone, which is something that he does frequently. And we're going to talk about why this is what this means for Gambit's early game vision control. It's also, but there's a big disadvantage to doing this as well, because it also means that you generally want to lane swap, because you lose a bit of power in the lane by having boots over, say any of the support items which give you either sustain or a little bit of combat stats. Okay, so, and it also delays the sightstone a lot, because if you're rushing mobility boots, you get the mobility boots first and then you buy your sightstone, but you still won't have time to buy the support item. So we're going to talk about that. Whereas if you buy a support item, it will give you gold to help you rush towards your sightstone to get wards out on the map early. So here I'm just going to pause the game a lot for this game because the first 3 minutes are so important. But I am going to but I'm not going to do this for all the videos. Okay, so the first thing I want you to notice is this is a very, very typical Gambit start here. It's a very good start and a very, very flexible start, and it's one of the strongest things about Gambit's early game. So what happens in the start? The jungle starts solo. Diamond always starts solo, and the AD carry and the top laner farm a camp, whilst the support freezes the lane here, or well, makes the lane push towards Gambit. Why is this smart? Because it's good for both parts of the lane swap. Okay, so this here, this decision here between top and AD carry, if it's going to be a 2v2 lane, the AD carry is going to get both of these golems, and it's going to get the EXP, solo EXP for both of these golems, and will be level 2 when he gets the lane. If it's a lane swap, then the lane is frozen and pushing towards Gambit. Pinoy is then going to come here and farm the lane normally, and the top laner, who is going to have an early level 2 from the camp, and is going to be able to farm safely. And this is something Gambit do in almost every single, well, in 60 to 70% of their games, and it's a very, very clever starting strategy, because it means that it gives them the ability to preempt both a lane swap and a non-lane swap scenario, and it means that they don't need to get wards deeper into the jungle in order to counter what their opponent's doing, because this strategy sort of gives them options and flexibility against both starts. The one thing it is weak against is sort of a late invade on the jungle, but it's which is going to happen in this game. But it is a very smart start, and it's something that to bear in mind. Okay, so I'm just going to play this. It's in particular. This is, however, in the season, this is the third time or fourth time that they use the strategy, and Fnatic are ready for it. But against a team which isn't expecting the strategy from you, it's a very strong start. Okay, so however, Gambit are expecting it, and they immediately go to punish it, knowing that Diamond is probably going to be solo in this jungle. Diamond sees them, so he doesn't give up the death, but he is pushed off his buff, which is bad for his jungle start. Okay, so this is sort of mistake number one. Okay, I'm going to pause it. This is so this is mistake number one, not having the wards, the early wards down for Gambit to expect this invade. There's no reason why Gambit can't ward the river at 140 instead of earlier than they do, because Diamond will have time, if he wards the river at 140, to go up to his buff here, and then he will see this invade coming, and then he will be able to immediately react, either by leaving his jungle and going to his red buff and then being able to invade blue, or not being pushed off his buff, which is the worst possible scenario. However, it happens and he's pushed off his buff. Now, note here that this Wisp has seen top laner and the jungler at Gambit's blue buff, and they've just seen the support leave lane. Note that Betsy here, Gambit's mid laner, is pushed up in his lane immediately, and has pushed his lane immediately in the Ahri versus Zed matchup, even though they've lost sight of Thresh. Okay? At 240, which is right here, the Wisp goes away, and they lose sight of the top laner and the jungler. But they know that about now they're going to be finishing the blue buff. Right, stop here. So the jungler and top laner here have two options. They can either recall, which is what they do, and go and try to claim their own blue buff to try to get a 3-buff start, or they can come and gank mid. And there's no wards here to sort of guard against them ganking mid, and Ahri is pushed very far up in the lane. Okay, so there should immediately be alarm bells ringing here for mid, and there aren't. Okay, I'm going to continue this here, and then here is where the alarm bell should really start ringing. Okay, so it's now Kennen places this ward here, which cannot see Reign over recalling. At this point, Ahri must go back in lane and try to at least place a ward here, because there's a high chance that Olaf and Maokai are going to come around here and gank him, but he still pushes up in his lane. And in fact, if they do come and gank him here, it's almost certain that he's going to die, because he has his flash up, but it is a 3v1 gank, and Olaf and Zed have a lot of damage early, and Maokai has the CC to be able to trap Ahri. And if they go mid and he's not expecting it, because as you can see he isn't, because he's pushed up the lane, he is going to die. And once they see that Fnatic aren't taking the Gromp, the most likely route, the thing that they're going to be doing here is ganking mid. But he doesn't react, and this is a big problem that Gambit have, which is a sort of a lack of vision awareness and a lack of vision control from mid. Okay, so that's the third mistake that Gambit make. Okay, I'm going to rewind it here because it's very important here to watch what Yellow Star is doing whilst all of this is happening. So note, Yellow Star's left lane hides here in the bush at 2:45, and stays in the bush so he's out of vision. Remember that he's left Gambit's vision at 2:38. Okay, so there. So they don't see him again until 2:47. Okay, when the minion wave sees him. In this time, he could easily have gone mid. Okay. Let's continue to just watch what Yellow Star is doing here. Okay, so he takes one CS for his relic shield, and then immediately goes into the bush, out of vision, and recalls immediately. Okay, so what this sort of 20 seconds shows is an example of Yellow Star's sort of great play on support. So he hides his movements really well, and he recalls at the right time. And by doing this, he can apply a huge amount of the pressure on the map without needing to actually take action. He doesn't actually, in order to create pressure, he doesn't have to land his skill shots. Simply by being in the right place at the right time, denying vision of himself, or allowing Gambit to see what he's doing, he creates a lot of pressure on the map. And in fact, he reveals himself to take the CS for his relic shield, then recalls immediately. So Gambit think that he's still in this lane, but really he's going to come and appear at this blue later when Gambit go to fight it. And this shows sort of the difference between Edward here, who's basically just stayed in lane for the whole time, and Yellow Star, and Yellow Star. So in the 1 minute between 1:55 and 2:55, Yellow Star has already helped to take a buff of the opposing team, threatened the gank mid, shown himself bot deliberately to mislead Gambit, and then recalled to ensure that he's in the right place for Fnatic taking their own blue buff at 3:30. So at some point in the future, I'm going to do a video on Yellow Star support play, and in terms of map awareness and positioning, I basically think that him, Lemonation, and Lustboy are miles ahead of anybody else in the West, and I think that this is something which isn't really acknowledged a lot. Other than they're recognized as being good supports, but we tend to recognize supports who make the flashy plays, such as the Afromoos or the Bunny Fufus, and really it's the supports like Yellow Star, although Yellow Star is also capable of making flashy plays, but supports like Yellow Star, Lemonation, Lustboy, who are the ones who are the really, really strong supports, simply because of the pressure that they can apply without actually needing to make these flashy plays. Sure, they can make the flashy plays, but they don't need to, and the reason why they're good supports is because of the pressure that they apply. Okay, so let's go and continue with this game. So Gambit, so Betsy continues to push his lane, even though he doesn't know where the junglers are. And this is mistake number 4 from Gambit. Edward is late coming out toward this blue. At this point, at 3 minutes 13, Edward's finally gone toward the blue buff. But this is the worst sort of both worlds. So Betsy hasn't died from a gank mid, or had to at least blow his flash and make a ridiculous outplay to survive mid. So Gambit know that Fnatic have recalled. They know because their Gromp they have the ward on the Gromp, and they know that that Fnatic are sort of recalling to fight for the blue buff. So they know that Fnatic are coming for this blue buff, and they've got to take it as quickly as possible. Edward hasn't been soaking EXP top, so he's still level 1, and he's going to offer nothing in the fight that's going to happen except for 1 binding. And once the binding's gone, he's going to offer nothing in the fight at all. He wards inside the blue buff bush rather than on the other side of this wall, so that Gambit don't know exactly when Fnatic are going to come. Okay, I understand why he wards here, so to help Diamond smite the buff if it's drawn into this bush. But it just shows a problem here. Gambit should probably not be contesting this buff once there's no gank mid, because they know that Fnatic are coming. There's nowhere else that Fnatic can be on the map, because they would have taken this Gromp if they were just going for a heavy farm counter jungling sort of style, or they would have ganked mid. So they know that they're coming, and they still decide to fight for it, and that's a major, major misplay. Okay. However, it's possible that they think, because of Yellow Star's actions here, that it's just going to be a 2 against 2 fight here for the blue buff. Of course, that's not what happens. So Morgana uses his binding to try to disengage. There's a flash here from Yellow Star who flash hooks Diamond, and Diamond is dead immediately. And again, this is Yellow Star applying huge amounts of pressure on the map. They're not expecting Yellow Star to be there, and as a result, they die. Okay, fifth misplay. So fifth misplay here, not expecting Yellow Star to be there. And remember, we're at 3 minutes 40 only. So the last mistake, the sixth mistake that Gambit make in the first sort of 3 minutes of the game, so I'm counting the game starting from 155, is this ward here that Betsy is about to place. Okay, this is an awful, awful, awful ward here. Why? Firstly, it gives no entrance to it gives no vision of the entrance to Gambit's jungle, and Fnatic can very, very easily go outside the vision of this ward round here to create the gank. And they know that Betsy has gone to place the ward because he's been pushing the lane all the time and he suddenly disappeared. He's obviously not disappeared to recall this early in the game, so they know that he's gone to place the ward, and he's seen coming back to lane here immediately by Zed. So that they know that this ward has been placed because he hasn't been gone from lane long enough to place a ward in this bush here. So he's either placed the ward here or he's placed the ward here. If he's placed the ward here, then Fnatic know that they can go around here. If they appear here and he immediately goes backwards, they know that there's a ward here. But this ward doesn't actually protect his lane. He should be warding here. Okay, so those are the 6 mistakes that Gambit make in the first 4 minutes of this game, and they still manage to win. And the reason they managed to win is because I have no idea what Fnatic are doing here. Like, I have no idea why they're going for this buff. It's very clear that sort of the AD carry and supporter topside, Diamond has a very, very low death time at this point in the game, and they have no reason to go for this buff, but they do. And as a result, they die for it, and they give up double buffs. And all the hard work, all the mistakes Gambit have made in the early game, in the first, those 6 mistakes are immediately thrown away, and Fnatic just throw their early game lead completely. I mean, when I was watching this game live, I couldn't actually believe what I was seeing. But you know, this is what happens, and this is in fact one of the reasons why Gambit weren't punished so much, because enemy teams in EU LCS tended to make very, very aggressive plays like this, and sometimes it would just throw the early lead. So you make all this preparation to prepare your early game strategy. Yellow Star makes all those great plays, and then they throw everything away immediately. And yeah, so. But it doesn't disguise the fact that Gambit made all of those mistakes early game. And in fact, what this does is it's quite dangerous if Gambit keep winning games like this, because they look at their play and they think, oh, these mistakes don't actually matter. But in reality, top teams are going to punish you for that. Top teams aren't going to go and invade that red buff over there. They're just going to take the 3 buffs, deny your early start, know that they have that they can sort of use this advantage to snowball early dragons or maybe to push towers, and they're not just going to give a double buff onto your AD carry immediately and give you 2 kills for nothing. Okay, so here I'm going to pause the game again. So this is 5:30 into the game. So this is a game where Edward is able to actually get his mobility boots early, get some early gold from the assist, and immediately turns this into vision. So normally Gambit are very, very weak at vision, which we'll see in the later videos, between sort of the 3-minute mark and the 12-minute mark, with Edward normally recalling around 9 minutes to 9 minutes 30, when the entire map is black from Gambit's perspective. They can't see anything on the map. And between 9:30 and sort of 10:30, he's going to come out on the map, and he's going to start placing a lot of wards between 10:30 and 12 minutes in the game. And this is when Gambit sort of start to try to get the vision control back. But they basically have no vision control early game, which we'll see in some of the later videos. But this game, Edward is able to get early wards, complete his mobility boots, and immediately turns it into vision, which you're going to see here. He places wards here, which give Gambit some amount of map control early. But here they're relying heavily on Tremor Sense and Callista Ghost to survive the early game through their lack of vision control. But luckily they get those 2 kills from Gambit and one of from Fnatic, and they're able to turn this into vision to make up for their weaknesses. Okay.
Yes, we haven't seen much of Betsy. Staying relevant.
Okay, so the game plays out normally here, and not a lot to say.
Play backwards. He's going to be able to just rush away. This is a very, very good start for Gambit.
Yeah, for sure. Especially because Diamond managed to get to
We're going to contrast this game with some other games later where Edward isn't able to get the early gold. Note that Betsy has this wasted ward in this bush, which they know must be in this bush. Well, obviously it's gone now, but they know that his trinket is on cooldown because they know when he placed his ward. Okay, yep, so. Difference in builds here, we see Yellow Star going for the more traditional early game sidestone. Rush rather than the mobility boost rush.
Tried to bait him into a bad fight here because Diamond was coming from the river, but due to Fnatic spotting him as Yellow Star was stealing away, then Juicy gold for himself. Fabian just ulted and then backed away for himself. Sure, if he actually dodged the charm, but he not.
I think he did.
Probably did, yeah. So just Betsy trying to set up a little bait. It worked for him instead. Often again, what you see is if Ari falls behind.
So more farming. I'm going to fast forward this a little bit, because I want to talk specifically about something which happens here. Okay. So here, note now Yellow Star has his sightstone. Note that he's managed to get 2 wards deep here in the Gambit jungle, and he's going to place 1 ward over this Baron ward here. So Gambit are going to have, Fnatic are going to have 3 deep wards, deepish wards in the Gambit jungle, and there's only going to be 1 defensive pink ward from Gambit. So Fnatic are going to have very, very strong vision control over what Diamond is doing in the jungle, and Gambit aren't going to have anything as near because Edward still doesn't have a sightstone, and the vision which he brought with his early 2 assists isn't going to add up to anything, because his defensive pink ward is here, which they know about, but the green ward which he bought early has gone. Okay. So the problem is that Gambit can, through strong mechanical outplay, sort of get early leads. However, the problem is in the transition. So the very top teams, sort of the Samsung Whites, the SK Telecoms, they get their early lead, and they snowball the early lead by immediately going and placing deep wards, tracking all your movements, and then can constrain you on what you can do, and you can't stop them placing the deep wards because you are weaker than them. And they use this vision to help them snowball their advantage even more. However, Gambit don't prioritize objectives, especially deep vision. This is something which they don't prioritize at all, deep vision. And this means that they can't snowball aggressively as a team such as SK Telecom or old Samsung White. Simply because they don't have the vision to be able to sort of snowball this sort of lead consistently. Sometimes they'll get lucky and be in the right place at the right time, but they're not going to be able to do it consistently.
I made this comment yesterday about how Gambit, they don't really care about early dragons unless it's for free. That's basically from Eddie himself to talk about how, yeah.
Note here that we're 11 minutes into the game, and Edward still doesn't have a sightstone and hasn't bought any wards since the wards that he got on his first back after they killed 2 people around river. He hasn't gone back to buy any wards at all, and there's almost no vision on the map. In fact, I'm going to pause it in just a second This mini map here in about 20 seconds is going to show Gambit's vision, what Gambit can see on the map, and you're going to notice that they have zero vision at all. They can't see anything which is happening on the map at all. And this is very, very, very typical Gambit. At around 11 minutes 40 into a game, they have no vision on the map. They just don't buy vision at this point, and they try to make it up between sort of the 11-minute and the 14-minute mark.
Thing for Gambit with Coppershot and Diamond together. Coppershot is one of the
So-
best players in terms of pure laning phase. Then of course Diamond can come down and
Okay, there we go.
snowball him.
So if you look at the minimap, this is what Gambit can see on the minimap. They have this is what Fnatic can see on the minimap, but this is what Gambit can see. So Fnatic have at least a deep ward here and here, but Gambit have zero vision anywhere on the minimap. They can't see. The only vision they have is of the minions. There's no vision anywhere. They haven't seen the jungler since around the 10-minute 30 mark. The jungler could be anywhere when they make this gank here. They could be going into a 2v2. I mean, and a 2v2 against Olaf Maokai versus Rek'Sai Kennen depends a bit about who gets the early burst, but they could if they try to tower dive or try to do anything like that, they could very easily be counter ganked.
Games I've seen it so many times. Notice they can spot him
And
in the bush here. They know that he's sitting there. So
Oh.
sapling. They're just gonna go all in.
they're just relying heavily on the sort of Rek'Sai, Tremor Sense, and Ghosts to be able to make up this vision deficit. See this tower dive here? Olaf could very easily have been there to stop that tower dive. In fact, Olaf was nearby, but he recalled.
Set up with the lane gank.
And they have no vision.
Diamond knowing you
So-
had enough damage and CC to lock down a mark.
So, note Edward still doesn't have a sightstone, still doesn't have a sightstone, still doesn't have a sightstone, although he's in base probably waiting for it, and it's now...
Later in the game, going for that mobility instead to really help out.
Still doesn't have the
Know what things
sightstone,
well from
still
Red.
doesn't... Oh, there he is. Okay, 12 minutes 45 into the game, Edward finally buys his sightstone. He hasn't even started placing the wards from his sightstone, and he hasn't bought a ward since his first back at 5 minutes.
Get in there, get into the back line of Gambit.
We'll watch this game until we see when Edward places his first ward.
Physical damage. We felt that early game, the laning phase may be quite integral because if their opponents get those hours.
Note here how Yellow Star has all these wards already on the map. They have a rough idea of where Diamond is at all times because they can see his normal route path.
Fnatic is there's no tank.
Still hasn't placed the ward, still hasn't placed the ward.
Who will be stacking armor for sure, but that's one target.
And this basically highlights Gambit's real lack of care about vision control in the game. There we go. Okay, so it's now 13:22, and Edward has placed his first sightstone ward. And this is basically Gambit just not prioritizing the vision in the early game. Now they win this game, and they win many other games where they don't prioritize the vision in the early game. But against teams that don't throw against you, like Fnatic do in this game, or against teams which punish you very, very strongly for having this sort of thing. Fnatic being one of these teams which are very good at punishing teams that aren't able to set up a controlled vision style of play. They can get punished, and when I cover the World Elite game at IEM, I'll go and talk a little bit about this and how it happens. And you'll see in some of these videos later the disadvantage of these. I just wanted to point out this match in particular, partly for Yellow Star's really, really good play in the first 5 minutes of the game. Secondly, for all the mistakes Gambit made and the fact that they weren't punished for these mistakes, and in fact they win this game quite comfortably in the end. But just pointing out a fundamental flaw in their style of play. This isn't about saying that Gambit can't win games, it's just pointing out flaws that can be exploited. Okay, so let's go into the next video. This is a game of Gambit versus Elements. This is the game where Froggen plays Anivia probably for the last time, until the metagame changes. Although Anivia's not awful in this metagame. Maybe we'll see Froggen play Anivia, but it's the last time he plays it this season. So again, we see another very, very typical Gambit team composition. Nidalee in the jungle, Morgana top lane, Assassin mid, Pinoy one of his 3 AD carries.
The Morgana top lane, and what you typically want to do
Um,
against that,
yep.
in this case, if you don't want to face, or if you don't want to risk your towers being chipped down.
And
you waste
here,
them on the
the thing I
banana,
want
it's
to
better
watch
still
out
be
for,
fairly good
so
farming
I'm
in
just
it.
going to fast forward because I spent a
Rumble
lot
is
of time
extreme.
talking about that first video.
Thresh away.
Okay. Here we see the typical Gambit start. Support freezes the top lane, for the reasons I said earlier in the game against Fnatic. Freezes the top lane. AD carry and top laner start a camp with the intention of giving EXP to either the AD carry if they're matched 2 against 2, or to the top laner if they're playing a lane swap game. Again, very strong start. This game is earlier in the season than the Fnatic game, so elements aren't expecting it, and they're able to make quite a smart heads up play.
For now, they're gonna set up a freeze, which is what you normally would see against a Rumble, because again, he's so risky to dive. We've seen it go wrong many times.
Like this is sort of the one innovation that this is the innovation that Gambit had this season, which I think gave them an edge in their run. And I think this is the big thing that Leviathan added to their play when he came in full time to be coach. This sort of 2 AD carry top laner support freezes lane. AD carry top laner starts camp.
Never lasted with your relic shield, because you need those minions to be there for as long as possible to deal the right amount of damage. And it's actually meant that this lane now is gonna push towards Wicked very slowly, and he can go up here after getting level 2 in the jungle.
Oh, the other thing to note is that once Edward, what normally happens is that once Edward has frozen the lane and ensured the lane is pushing towards Gambit, he will then go into the enemy jungle to try to spot what's happening and try to maybe harass a buff or something. But here, unlike the previous game where Gambit make a ton of early mistakes, there's nothing wrong here at all. They have strong early vision game. They're making sensible plays. They did the good start on Gromp. Nothing wrong here at all.
But for now, now moving down to it. There's 2 wards placed by Gambit already. So Capuchat knows, and he's backing away. This is enough for elements. You don't even
However,
need you just need to
okay, here is where the game starts to go wrong.
Under the tower here.
Not here. Nick gets a very good trade here. Okay, here is where it begins to go wrong. And this is something which you can't really blame Gambit for. This just has to come with practice. This is about wave management. So we're going to go back up to the top lane here, and Gambit here mess up the freeze because they're trying to race to destroy this tower. Note, elements get the good freeze here on the lane, and Gambit mess up their freeze here. They push this lane too quickly, and the tower goes down too early before this wave, which is coming out of base here, arrives in front of the tower so that they can deny all the CS. You see, they killed this wave way too quickly. Wave hits the tower here. Tower's going to go down very easily. And Diamond is topside, so Rumble is frozen off this tower anyway. So this wave here is going to push very hard towards elements, and this is why Rumble's sitting in this bush. He knows that the wave is coming towards him, and he's going to be able to farm it safely. So this is just something you just have to practice, and Gambit just messed this up. So they mess up the freeze, and they should have delayed the push by about 3 seconds. And if they delayed the push by 3 seconds, then what this would have meant is that they would have been able to deny all the CS to the tower instead of the wave pushing, and this forces them to stay in top lane longer. But what does this mean in terms of the game? It means that basically Nidalee has to come back top again, even though there's nothing that Nidalee can farm here, and is going and has to come and help push this wave into the tower, or else Wicked is just going to be able to farm this forever. He's going to be able to freeze this lane forever. What this means is that elements basically get a free dragon. So because of the freeze that Gambit mess up earlier, so Nidalee's going to show top. Wicked, they can't take this tower. They don't have the damage here to take this to
at all. So they're actually going to be able to get a lot of damage on this turret, while
And they're
cover
gonna
shot on this Morgana has to pull to keep the wave in the middle here. And very far
So because
away
of that
from the
freeze that
turret.
they messed, so they can't. It's really difficult to dive this
By
rumble.
having Morgana into the
This level
rumble,
3
to
rumble
actually
here
push down
under
again,
the tier 2 tower.
force
They
it
can
down
dive
to
under
the
the
top
tier
lane
1,
turret,
but the
and
tier
now
2
they can
gives
swap
you
around. Cutlass completed for, he did the same
a
yesterday.
shield,
It's
and
simply
people are
because
recalling already.
he
They lose sight of
reverse
Anivia, so they're
plan
worried that
hurricane,
Anivia is
getting
roaming top.
every setup on Kalista. It's not even a
Now
matter of
Elements
playing
don't
against,
take the
he
dragon,
just
but they
really
could
prefers to
easily
get
have taken the dragon
play
there.
as the
Quite
first item, then
quite
into
easily.
hurricane,
It was basically a
start
free dragon that Elements
like
chose not
most,
to
and
take.
we see different styles often in LPL.
So this is
and
from
when
messing
teams
up
play
the freeze
Mythical,
2 minutes
we
ago.
see the
But
BT
this is
counter
just
hurricane,
this is not
most
a
lane
strategic
hurricane
error.
first.
This is
Hurricane
just
first as well. I mean, it's all
this is
about still getting that attack speed.
making a
It's gonna make it very
mechanical
mobile,
error
a
that
bit stronger in
they
terms of
didn't practice
one-on-ones. If he's
enough.
chasing on for these kills, you have to slow from the blade,
And you can
and
fix
obviously you
fix
have
things
to
like that
slow
very
from your
quickly.
rend.
So it's not
Reckless?
it's not a big issue.
There's no way.
Whereas the strategic stuff, which I'm talking about with warding and stuff, is much more
as well as Shook, clearing out
Um,
ward in the river. Eddie's not going to be able to defend that one.
So Elements
Funny
actually
enough, the last
don't
time we
take
saw
the
Faker
dragon,
play Nibia, it doesn't come back.
which
We
was
had to
free,
wait because Shook is showing himself in the bottom lane.
but they
Ryan
could
is
have.
showing himself in the river.
Lantern to safety.
Of course, Gambit don't
But the last time we saw
prioritize
Frog
early
play
dragons.
Nibia was in the summer split
Um,
last year.
and
He was actually
that's
against
probably
Gambit
sensible with their weak
3-4,
early game vision control.
and
But
Elements lost the game, and we never saw Nibia again.
so they don't really care about giving up that dragon. But it was a dragon that they basically gave up for free because they messed up a freeze, and therefore they had to all come top to push it into tower and to sort of try to zone Wicked off the tower.
2012, a very famous CLG EU game against
Okay.
Moscow 5. Then Nibia as well.
So here's one of the advantages of having wards.
Somebody's making a comeback here. Pinoy finds the
So you
red,
have a
but
fight in the
Reckless
bottom
going in, collateral
lane
damage,
that
dodging around. Will
basically
this be first blood? It
comes
will,
down to
and
the trade,
Reckless
although
picks
it's
it up,
bad
but he pays
for
the
Gambit
price
because
as
Edward
Eddie
gets the kill.
slaps him down after the fact. A pair of AD
Um,
carries in the bot lane.
So trading 1-for-1 in the bottom lane here kills actually
So,
goes in favor of
they
Elements
spot
because
Nidalee
Reckless
here
managed to
at
pick it up
8:20.
and the other one went
They know
to
Nidalee's in that bush
Eddie, but the fight itself, the red
because of
was used fairly early
the
for
fact that they've
Pinoy,
got
and
ward.
he
They've
didn't
got
actually
vision
get a
on
reset
Diamond.
it, so he was on cooldown, and that's why he couldn't finish
They're
off
going to
Reckless
spot
despite
Nidalee
a lot of
again.
stacks on him. just
So
using
they know
the
Nidalee is
ward
topside, and Nidalee
and
cannot
forcing
get
a
from
trade.
this red
Otherwise,
to this blue
he would have been able to get one kill for himself.
in time. They spot Nidalee again because Nidalee again comes out of the bush at 8:42. And they know that Nidalee is topside, almost certainly going towards this blue buff here. Like the commentator said, it's not that they've timed the blue buff, it's that they've seen Nidalee at this red buff, and they know roughly where Nidalee is on the map, and when Ari disappears, it's obvious where Ari is going. Ari's going to the blue buff. And this gives them the free dragon. This ward that they have up here by their red buff, expecting the invade, gives them a free dragon. And Gambit never get these sorts of free dragons because they just don't ward deep.
Your jungle is now going to be in the top side of the map.
Okay.
You can just run straight down.
So they get free dragon.
There was even the pink ward here in the small tribe.
Note,
small bush, so they could even see if
mobility
Gambit
boots rush
worst case.
on Edward.
Movement, just how Elements likes it. Froggen able to control the waves so well.
Again, as opposed to prioritizing early game vision control. And you're going to see the very typical sort of 9 minutes 30, 9 minutes 40 Edward recall here. Always recalls around 9 minutes 30, 9 minutes 40. Buys his Sightstone, and between sort of 11, 10:30, sort of 14 minutes is when Gambit tried to gain vision control. They don't do anything before. So just give me a sec. So often by this stage they're down a dragon, they have no vision control, and Edward's not really putting any pressure on lanes. He sort of just stays in bushes. And here you sort of see the lack of vision immediately costing Gambit as they lose a kill here. In fact, they're going to lose 2 kills. And this is Gambit pushing with no map pressure from any of the other lanes, and they have no vision of anybody. So, I mean, they could easily be 4 people coming top, and indeed there are 4 people coming top.
Any wards in the enemy jungle or not, you keep pushing, and
you're going to see the same problem here. Edward is beginning to get the vision back.
Ends up dying here, and Elements pushing down with both Reckless and Nifty. Remember, they have this fast push. Can clear the waves very,
However,
very easily.
Pausing here, they have no vision of the jungler, and they know the jungler is topside because he's just killed Morgana. They know that the top laner's TP is up.
Eddie's setting up for
These are both things that Gambit know. But this is the problem with the early game map awareness, and this costs them immediately. They can't fight this. And this is basically how Gambit's sort of early game lack of vision control can be punished. Of course, what immediately happens is the elements go and dive this tower and go give up a free kill to Diamond. So the fact that they're ahead doesn't matter because they're going to throw their lead, exactly like Fnatic throw their lead. And this is how Gambit basically make up for the fact that they lose games early. The enemy team just throws. Like, Fnatic throws, Elements throws. In both of these two games, and that's why they're able to come back from such a massive deficit. But like the top teams are not going to do this. Like EDG isn't going to throw in this way. So this is one of the reasons why they're going to struggle in international competition. And indeed, Fnatic have their problems sorted out by the time the playoffs come up, and Gambit do not. Okay, so that's that game. I'm going to just cover these in a little bit more brief details. Okay, so this game here is a case of sort of the weak vision control coming from mid. So we've talked a little bit about Edward's late attempts to go and gain vision control. Here we're going to look at Betsy a little bit. So remember, Edward is always intending to recall around 9 minutes 30. Okay, stop here. Okay. So again, note Lulu here is mid. Still mid, still mid. Okay, pause, stop. Lulu has pushed the lane here and is recalling and hasn't placed his trinket ward. He hasn't placed the trinket ward. This is one of the things which, as a coach, is the most infuriating things you can possibly imagine. You have free vision. Vision is one of the most important objectives in the early game, and your mid laner, who can give you the most options for placing the trinket ward in a matchup where Jarvan can fight Eve pretty well one-on-one, you have just doesn't place his trinket ward. It's free vision. You can place the vision here, you can place the vision here. Even sort of mid silver level players know, like mid gold level players know that you just place your trinket ward. I mean, if I was coaching a team and my mid laner did this, it doesn't matter if they finish the game 17-1. I'm going to go in and we win the game and they hard carry despite all the other lanes doing really, really badly. I'm going to have a really, really long discussion with them after the game. This is such a bad error, and it's not an error that any professional League of Legends player should be making. I mean, he just has to place it over here. Even if he places it in the lane here, he can see if Jarvan is going across here. It's just free vision. It's free information, and he's just chosen not to take it. Now, you could sort of understand why he would do it if he was recalling and he thinks that he's going to need that ward later. However, he buys 2 wards and then immediately changes for a sweeper. So he just failed to use that free ward for no reason at all. And this is something which, this isn't the only game where it happens, but often Betsy doesn't ward very, very well. I'm going to show this in the next couple of videos, a little bit about Betsy. And when you combine this with the fact that Edward isn't roaming that much to get early game vision, and sometimes when Diamond is on a jungler which doesn't want to build an early game sightstone, so something like an Eve or something like an Nidalee, it can make Gambits, basically, they lose vision completely in the early game. And I mean, top teams will punish you for this, and in fact, World Elite do punish them at IEM. Okay. I mean, like this failure to place the ward really, really, really is just it's just inconceivable that like a top level pro player would do that. But I mean, this is something which I guess comes with experience. And I mean, remember that Betsy's only been playing, at the LCS level for 4 weeks at this point. But even so, you would still expect, you would still expect this to never happen. I mean, it's just such a bad mistake. Rather than watching through this, I'm just gonna fast forward until 9 minutes 30 in the game, and we're gonna see what we see in pretty much every single Gambit game, which is Edward here is going to recall at 9 minutes 30 every single time and going by the sightstone, which is where Gambit are going to make up their lack of vision. For their lack of vision.
zone, but now Diamond
He's
been
got to
caught
stay
out.
alive first. Yeah, they're going to get away from it just for a moment, but they are in a little bit of trouble. So teleport comes in to save the day. Kabashard moves in on Odo. Wamne, they've got a
This
lot
is
of
good
damage,
teleport
and it
used by
looks like
Kabashard.
that is
Like, I mean,
going
I'm
to
not,
be
I'm
first
not,
blood.
I'm not
It goes
here to just say
Kabashard.
Gambit are
Well,
like
there
an
we
absolute,
go.
you
He's
know, I'm
going
not
to
saying
throw
Gambit are
down his
garbage.
own
Like,
ultimate as
Gambit
we
have very
miss the
good
charm, but
mechanical
still
players,
finds the damage. Alex
and they
ends up
sometimes
with the
do make good
kill
decisions, but
onto
their vision
Kabashard.
control
Now
is
Diamond
so
in hot
poor in the
pursuit
early game,
of both.
and there are some
Can he
problems
pick
with
them
their
up with a
team,
hate?
their team
Flag and Draggy's
their
got
team
no more mana,
compositions,
as you
which
said.
I'll
They
talk
would
about in a later video. Okay, so
make
we're
their
gonna
great
see
escape.
Edward
Top lane
isn't
is traded.
recording, hasn't recorded
Final
yet.
fight here in the mid
Hasn't
lane.
recorded
Teleport's
yet.
coming
It's now
in.
recording. Okay, so
Teleport
this is the
Kabashard
typical Edward
running
recall
right
around
into
9
the
minutes
bottom lane up
30
there.
to
Ends
10
up
minutes
trading
30 going by the
1-for-1.
Sightstone. Try to catch up for
Top
the vision
lane's
control you're
dying.
lacking.
And H2K instantly leaving this top lane, rotating down to the
Yeah,
mid
there we
lane.
go.
Start
So he's
pushing
going to
in,
recall
knowing that
here and
Gambit's
get
fairly
his
low after
Sightstone.
the fight. Get a bit on the tower,
And this is very, very
If the
predictable. It happens
teleport
every
comes,
single game.
didn't, could instantly join the top lane. Should be able to push in the wave as well.
Sure
before
enough, there you go
anyone
and see the
shows up.
Sightstone. I'm not gonna talk too much about
Nice
this. I
little
mean,
overview by
he goes and
H2K,
places
really
wards.
using that TP advantage.
It doesn't matter where he places the wards; it's the timing of this. And this, when you get to my second video, this will matter a lot. So, okay, we'll go to the fourth video. These last videos are going to be focused primarily on Betsy and his points before the 5-minute mark. Okay, so in this game here, this is against Copenhagen Wolves. This is when Betsy. I'm going to compare and contrast. I'm going to talk about why you ban Zed against Betsy. Now, Betsy is a very strong Zed player, but you can often leave Zed up because Zed can sometimes fall off late game, and you can sometimes play around this. But there's a particularly good reason to ban Zed against Betsy, and that's because Betsy's vision control is poor early game, and Zed has a very, very easy and very, very cheap free escape.
It is.
So we're going to compare and contrast these two games.
Looking up to this player and going forward in this game.
Thank you, Diamond, for being the first
Again,
guy to walk in and
these
stomp
these
this Maokai
I'm
level
not
2.
hating on Betsy. I
One
think
was
Betsy's
placed,
actually a pretty good
cleared.
mechanical player
Lot of
and a
saplings
very good
jumping,
assassin
he's
player.
still staying there. He might
However,
go for the small minions and then
he's
back away from
still
the
a
camp
solo
itself
queue
with some
player,
XP,
and
also
is
go
still
back this
getting
way.
used to competitive. And this is something which
He's gonna catch freeze with
he's going
Dark
to have to
Binding.
improve. Again, start. I know I'm going to point this out in every video, but note Edward comes to lane to freeze,
Diamond was so
and
rude
note
to
that
destroy the party.
the AD carry
Raptors alive to
AD
watch.
carry top laner
Kids.
taking
Taken away.
the buff.
Terrible thing.
No, sorry, not the buff. The
We've all
cap.
been there.
All serious.
Right?
Very,
People
very,
that
very,
have a
very
lot of
typical.
kids.
Here,
Anyway.
they choose to give it
Edward's a
to
little bit low in
Kabashard.
this lane right
They
now,
don't
so
always give it to
a late
Kabashard. I have
team
seen
pick because
times
Kabashard's
where
gonna go ahead and spend that
they
teleport
have
to
given
way
it
up.
to. Betsy. Okay, sorry, I got a bit distracted. I'm just gonna rewind a little bit because this is important.
Life is watching.
Okay, so
Those poor kids.
Gambit here have vision on
Taken
Wolves
away.
and Gromp. Right,
Terrible thing.
I'm going to have to rewind a little
Was
bit.
placed.
Sorry about that.
He cleared.
Sorry about that. I
Little
got
saplings
distracted a
jump,
little
but
bit.
he's
So
staying
I'll
there.
talk a little
Still
bit
go for
more
the
about
small
Betsy
minions,
afterwards.
then back away from the camp itself, get
But
some
this sort of
XP,
map
but also
awareness, okay, sort of map awareness and the map awareness and sort of the awareness about the importance of vision is something which you develop as you become a professional player, and this is something Betsy's still developing and hopefully will sort out by the end of the season. And this is the coach's responsibility to help him with this. And it's something which didn't happen this season, and I think is one of the reasons why Gambit didn't do as well as many hoped that they might.
Oh, Eddie's gonna catch
Myself
freeze
included,
with
actually. I
Dark
quite like
Binding.
Gambit. Okay, so we're going to talk a little bit about Betsy's map awareness. Okay, so Gambit have wards on Wolf and Gromp. So they know that Jarvan is starting red side.
So we did see Youngbuck just take the small one. If the diamond is so rude to destroy.
So
the
if
party.
Jarvan is starting red side, he's going to come around here when they're going to lose vision of him. But they know that he's not... Well, they know that he could invade, but they should expect him to go blue, red, and then be in a position to gank mid or bot around 3 minutes there.
Anyways, Pinoy and Edward. Edward's a little bit low in this lane right now. So a late to lane, speaking of, is Kabashard. He's going to go ahead and spend that teleport to make his way up top after helping out with the Rug Camp.
Alright, so Copenhagen will get
So of course Ari can push early in this matchup.
Remember Tristana, after the changes, her early game is a lot weaker than it used to be. So it's going to be a bit of a tough matchup for Gambit's bottom lane. And also with Eddie starting these boots here, that is...
I think this is one of the reasons why Pinoy doesn't get the buff. They're not they don't think that even with a level 2 Pinoy they can beat a Graves any sort of lane bully lane. So they just give Cabochard, because they know Maokai is going to be level 2, so they give Cabochard the level 2 to be able to fight Maokai. Whereas giving level 2 to Pinoy isn't going to help Gambit win this lane. It's such a bad lane for Morgana Tristana. Okay, so here we are. So it's 3 minutes 30. Gambit don't know where the jungler is, but they know he's probably just done his blue buff by now. He's either recalled or he's going to come mid or bot. Now it's unlikely he's going to come bot lane here because they can basically kill Pinoy very, very quickly. He might be able to blow some summoners here. And Annie doesn't have ignite, so it's possible that Pinoy won't die. But he could be coming bot or he could be coming mid. And this is actually quite poor. They both pushed up here. They know where the jungler is, but they don't know. Well, they know he's either recalling or he's coming for a gank, and yet they both push up. And Zed pushes up immediately here, which is a problem. But this is so the gank. So Zed's on the bottom side of the mid lane here. Well, he's just gone up to the top to dodge the RE charm, but he's on the bottom side here, which means that he is vulnerable to the gank, whereas he should be farming from the top side of the mid lane, expecting the Jarvan gank. But if we go and rewind a little bit, because remember they know Jarvan has just done blue buff. They know he started red, and they know he's coming to blue. There. So Zed is actually farming here on the bottom side of mid lane, or in the middle of mid lane, where he should be farming to the top side of mid lane. Especially now that Diamond knows that his blue hasn't been stolen. Okay, but here, this is Betsy on Zed. So he can escape very, very easily. It doesn't matter that his vision control is poor. But anyway, so this is an example of Betsy's warning pattern. He gets ganked early, that's fine. He now knows Jarvan has gone top side, and he's going to place a ward to track Jarvan's path after the gank has already happened. Here we go. Note where he places the ward as well. He places it in the bush. Ari sees him place it in the bush, and he knows that it's here. So this ward isn't even particularly useful. It's used to track Jarvan after the gank's already happened. But the gank happens, but he's able to basically get away because he's Zed. Now let's have a look at what happens in a game where he's not Zed. This is against Giants, who are a team that were not very good this LCS season. But this is him on a champion which isn't.
But look at what Gambit is doing. So because they know it's going to
be
a
swap, this is Jarvan gank. He's playing Lissandra mid, another assassin that has an escape, but an escape which isn't as fast as Zed's escape. Because Zed can pretty much escape instantly, whereas Lissandra takes a little bit of time. So here, they force Diamond off his buff.
A little slow to move.
Get the flash.
He actually has to flash to get away from that one. Edward was trying
Good
to
play
push
here.
them off this blue buff, but Giants, they're having none of that. The Dark Bindings are down. There's still 4 members here. You can't contest
Boilip
even
needs
with
to go bottom
Cabochard.
lane. Boilip has to
Okay,
go
so
bottom
they
lane
know
now. He loses too
they have
much
this ward
farm.
here. They've
You're not
seen
gonna dive
Jarvan
anyway
leaving
to
this
the
blue
two
buff.
guys from
So they know
Gambit.
Jarvan's leaving the blue
Morgana's
buff.
here with the black
They
shield.
see him.
Kennen
They're
already got
leaving.
level 2 as well. Oh, sorry, with the
See him
binding from Eddie.
leaving.
There's the teleport.
They see him
the
going
binding's gonna cancel
towards-
it.
That's
Eddie.
huge.
Oh, that's big for them.
They know
Boilip
he's
is gonna
coming
be
towards mid now,
so
and they
far
know he's
behind
coming.
now. No
Lissandra's immediately
teleport.
pushing up, makes a very, very poor play here. Shouldn't be farming on this side of the lane. Should be farming on the bottom side of the lane. Like a more experienced mid with better map awareness should know Jarvan is here, and they've seen Jarvan coming towards mid.
Lost the entire wave. They're just slowly being built up by Pinoy. He's level 3 already on Kalista. If that lane ever gets reset, but there are 4 guys on this top side map. So
Basically,
meanwhile,
the point is here
Gambit
that
getting farm on the
they've seen
cannon.
Jarvan coming mid. I'm sorry.
Another
guys.
binding.
So they know Jarvan's coming mid,
Oh,
and
the
you're
binding's
going to
gonna
notice that he
cancel
blows
it.
the flash.
That's huge.
Oh, that's big for them.
Because, I mean,
Boilip is gonna
Lissandra
be
can't
so
escape in the
far
same way that
behind
Zed can
now.
escape,
No teleport.
and
Lost
can't
the
do this
entire
quickly.
wave. They're just
And
slowly
despite
being
the
built up by
there,
Pinoy.
so
He's level
the flash
3
happens here.
already
You'll
on
notice that the
Kalista.
flash
If
is
that
there.
lane ever gets reset and is in
So this is one of the reasons why you don't give Betsy Zed. I mean, Betsy is a very, very strong Zed player, but you can play around Zed. But if he's on another assassin or another champion which doesn't have an early escape, you can easily punish him for it. Whereas you can't easily punish the Zed in the same way. And here they blow the flash early. When basically Betsy should know where he is at all times in this thing. Okay, So, two things to notice from these videos. Edward always roams around the 10-11 minute mark. He rushes boots early over GP10 and delays his sightstone. And that Gambit had very, very poor control, vision control, map awareness, especially from mid lane, and no roaming support. Diamond makes up the difference in vision when he's playing sort of tanky junglers or junglers which can buy wards easily, but this is when he's playing a jungler like Nidalee or Eve, which want to build things early, he can't make up this vision deficit. So, why do Gambit have these weaknesses and why they don't? Why they're not fixed? So basically, the issue Gambit have is that jungle and mid is basically a duo lane when it comes to vision control. So I'll do some more videos on this at some point in the future. But the normal style, which you have from jungle and mid, especially in China, is that the jungler is basically the support and will look to buy the bulk of the wards for mid lane warding, whereas the mid lane is sort of the carry who prioritizes rushing items. So even LPL junglers, which have played carry roles in the past, such as Spirit and World Elite, which I'll talk a little bit about in the last video. I mean, basically Spirit in Season 3 and early Season 4 only played carry junglers. His Kha'Zix was really, really good. And even sort of, now that they've come to the LPL, they adjust to sort of the LPL meta, which is that junglers buy a lot of the wards. Now, the problem here is that, well, no, actually, I'll talk about the problem in a second. But I mean, basically, sorry, I don't want to say that this is the only style that works. I mean, you can have a carry jungle and a support mid lane. But the mid has to commit to buying a lot of wards to make this work. And Betsy basically doesn't do this. So basically, Gambit are pigeonholed into sort of a supporting style jungler who buys vision control around mid, and a mid laner which sort of plays as a carry mid laner in the mid jungle sort of duo lane. But I mean, you can definitely run it the other way around. I mean, Hai being a very, very good example of this, being a supportive mid laner with Meteos as sort of a carry jungler. SKT also play this way sometimes when they have Easy Hoon mid and Tom as sort of their carry jungler, whereas Bengi is sort of their supportive jungler. CLG also played it, I think, back in Season 4 with Link as sort of a support, Dexter being sort of more carrying. I think that's one of the problems actually this season with CLG, in that because when Xmithy replaced Dexter, Xmithy sort of preferred to play the more supportive jungle role from his time with XDG, where Mancloud was more the carry, and Link wasn't comfortable against the top teams switching from a more supportive role to a more carrying sort of role in that duo lane. Although he could do this very, very easily against the weaker mid laners who he could just out mechanic rather than needing to rely on strategy as well as mechanics to win. I'll do some more on this in another video at some point. Duo mid lanes are definitely something that is different from solo queue and competitive, and something which we should discuss. So anyway, with Gambit, Diamond is capable of playing both the carry role and the supporting role. But he's Gambit's best player. Well, he was Gambit's best player last season, and he has more of an impact when he plays a more carrying role in the jungle. However, at the same time, Betsy's champion pool and playstyle is very assassin focused, and his vision control and map awareness are still quite poor, although hopefully Gambit's new coach will be able to fix this. So it's not really well suited to playing sort of this supporting mid laner style. And as a result, Gambit have sort of no early game vision control around the mid lane, and because their team relies heavily on snowballing early game, this is a major, major weakness. And it's one that's exploited at IEM by Gambit's opponents and late in the playoffs. So I just want to say again, sorry, this is not to hate on Betsy. As a professional League of Legends player, there are two main things that need work, sort of mechanics and sort of strategic knowledge. And I guess also coping with mental stress. That's something else. So as a coach, it's very, very hard to teach mechanics, because mechanics includes knowledge of lane matchup, skill shot, sort of accuracy, predicting, being able to know when your opponent's going to do this, being able to play a champion to its limits. And as the majority of the coach's time is spent sort of watching games and helping your players improve rather than actually playing, it's basically impossible for a coach to know all 5 positions better than each of your full-time people who are playing their role. So what a coach can offer is sort of wider knowledge of the League of Legends scene, so sort of Urgot being used as a counter, or Cho'Gath becoming popular in China. So that sort of thing that you can provide as a coach in the West, or indeed when SKT started using that Kalista Kennen bot lane. So knowing the strategic adjustments and metagame developments, and also general pointers to help improve strategic knowledge. But it's impossible for you as a coach to know all 5 positions better than all 5 of your players who are playing these positions full time. It's just too difficult to do it. And actually, if you consider this sort of strategic knowledge versus mechanics, the mechanics being the player's responsibility and the strategic knowledge being the coaching staff, mechanically, Betsy's actually a pretty decent player. I mean, he's not Faker level, he's not Forbidden or Power level, Evil level, but he's an above average mechanical player in the ULCS with room to improve. And it's sort of the coach's responsibility to help him improve on his weaknesses in the strategic play. And this didn't start to happen until after IEM, and wasn't fixed before the end of the season. I think as a result of Gambit doing very, very well with Betsy, they felt they didn't need to make too many adjustments when these flaws were already existing in their games and costing them early, but the other team would throw, like the Fnatic game or the Elements game, the other team would just throw, even though they'd outplayed Gambit early. So, Gambit's weaknesses in vision control were pretty much obvious from week 3 of the LCS. But they kept winning sort of games due to their mechanical outplays and the other team's throwing. And so nothing was changed until it was too late in the season to matter. And I think that this is where you have to blame Gambit's support staff rather than their players for what happened last season. And this is one of the reasons why I'm very, very optimistic about Gambit's chances this season, because I believe that Gambit with better coaching staff can have a very, very strong run at top 3 in the ULCS. And I believe that they have the potential to qualify for Worlds. But it's important to know that even though they've signed a very strong mechanical play in Forgiven, if Gambit do qualify for Worlds, it's not going to be because it's going to be their coach rather than Forgiven who's the MVP. Sort of fixing these strategic flaws. That is what they need. I mean, Forgiven is a mechanical upgrade, but really it's the strategic errors in Gambit's game which need to be fixed. And I hope that they pick the right coach for the job, because I actually have a very soft spot for Gambit in my heart and would love to see them in the Worlds again. Okay, we'll pass on to the next video to show how these flaws are actually exploited in IEM and international competition. Okay, thank you for watching.